bring your popcorn. What we have is an approved narrative dumpster fire in progress.
Today I'm speaking with the 9 patent holder of mRNA technology, an immunologist, a virologist, a vaccinologist, all of the things that the mainstream news does not want to tell you about Dr. Malone is what we're going to tell you. So Dr. Malone, it's been a crazy past few weeks for you. I have a few things I want to talk to you about today. I want to give you a chance to respond to the AP and the Reuters articles and their job of trying to dismiss mass formation. But first, I know you haven't had a whole lot of time to review the Project Veritas story, but that did just drop last night. From what you've seen of it, how credible do you think that is?
So I think that what we may be seeing is one of two things. We either have a false flag operation aimed at Project Veritas and discrediting Project Veritas and anybody that will buy in to the Project Veritas narrative now around these documents, or we have someone at DARPA basically throwing Tony Fauci under the bus. And it's really difficult to tell the difference between those two. There's some language in here that is almost it's like catnip. It's so straightforward about the hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, et cetera, and the risks of the mRNA vaccines, and that this has been suppressed, and talking about the Trusted News Initiative. It is so consistent with what I and many others have been saying that you have to take a pause and say, this is kind of too good to be true. I
would say that, does that make you a little bit more suspicious because it is falling right in line with everything that you have been saying? So it seems like if you were going to try and discredit a group of people and doctors, this would be a good way to try and do that.
So I had breakfast with Pierre Corey this morning, fortunately, and he's already looked at these things also. And he concurs with me that the wording here is so straightforward. But I deal with the DoD folks and Marines all the time, and they tend to be plain speaking. They are not DC bureaucrats that have spent their whole life playing kabuki theater. And in my experience, the DoD personnel that have been involved in this all the way through are not comfortable with what's going on. And they have been very clear and straightforward to me when I've spoken to them, including the colonel who was in charge of the Operation Warp Speed project for Moderna, who called me months ago, set up a Zoom, and was very, very plain spoken with me about what he observed. So I think you have to factor in that our military personnel are, they're drawn from mainstream America, and they speak like mainstream Americans, often very plain spoken, not crafting nuanced, tricky narratives. And it is entirely possible that this is valid. It is also possible, because we're dealing with DARPA and DARPA documents, and DARPA is CIA. They are the intelligence community. They are DoD, and they are the ones. They have a long history of doing gain of function research.
Now, you said in other interviews that you have buddies in the CIA. So, what can you tell me about that? Are they with DARPA, or can you not tell me?
One of them has, the one that I've spoken about, Michael Callahan. You can look him up. He was a DARPA project officer. He was very much involved in this biologics area, but Michael and I don't talk anymore. I have other friends in the agency, and I'm going to be careful here since we're on video. One of the reasons why I haven't reviewed the documents is I've been busy chatting with the senator, and who's very involved in investigations. And I suggested that this could well be a false flag operation, and his comment was that these folks can craft whatever narrative they want to put out. And they can and do manipulate documents and everything else. So the integrity and veracity of these, although I'm sure I have confidence that Veritas believes them to be legitimate, and that Veritas, they've been burned enough that I think they've gotten pretty careful, because they don't want to be caught in a false flag operation. And I think they are not naive. So to a first level, I think we need to assume that Veritas did their diligence. And the follow-up, there's a specific Marine named here, and he was contacted, and he apparently was not the source of the documents, but he was the author, apparently. And he apparently gave a written comment to Veritas that if you read through it, this sounds like a person who is coming from mainstream America, with who is a devout person, committed to their faith, and could credibly have written these plain spoken words. So we have a name of a Marine. We have ostensibly a document from a Marine. We have photographic evidence of this Marine. So this Marine appears to exist, and that all can be traced. And I guarantee that the veracity and provenance of these documents are being very actively pursued right now by the appropriate committee in the Senate. And I think, Kristi, for us and for the general public, I think we need to keep our powder dry a little bit. It certainly looks like a smoking gun. This is one that looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck, and it could well be a synthetic genetically engineered chicken. We just have to wait and see a little bit, and not get out ahead of our skis. But
I mean, at the same time, they do review some of the things that we've already known, as far as the DARPA rejection of doing this research to begin with. That's been widely disseminated already, so it falls in line with that. And it just continues to paint this picture that Dr. Fauci has committed perjury, has tried to hide this. So, I mean, it definitely follows what we've all been observing up until this point.
I concur. If these are verified, and there will be verification, I guarantee, and this will come out, and if these documents have integrity, then I don't know where this goes, but it sure looks like legal proceedings, resignation, and vindication for almost everything that we have been saying for the last year and a half. Just soup to nuts, which is why it feels too much like a Christmas present that is likely to be a false flag operation. Is it just is too good to be true? In the sense of, I don't want to, maybe that's a bad choice of words. I know what the world has experienced. And to call that good, what we've experienced, is not the right wording. But it does look like validation, which would allow us to move beyond, hopefully, the kind of propaganda, censorship, mainstream narrative that has been forced on us, and moving towards the other topics we're going to hit today. There's a bunch of cracks in the information wall regarding governments and government programs, particularly in the UK, and leaders of those programs coming clean now and unburdening their conscience, basically, and acknowledging things like directed government efforts at using fear as a tool to control human behavior. That's
Yeah,
we
so
now
let's
have
move on
that.
to that other topic. So as far as the Project Veritas, we're going to be cautiously optimistic and see how that plays. And you can tell us not everything, but that there are senators, or there is action at the Capitol already looking into some of these things, and hopefully we'll see that play out. Now, as far as the attacks on your character,
Okay, so
Kristi,
I've just been given authorization to read the following statement
okay.
from Ron Johnson's office. Okay, Senator, Wisconsin, head of the Republican head of the Senate Subcommittee on Investigations. Quote, I've been investigating all these issues relating to the coronavirus and federal agencies' involvement in funding of gain of function and other dangerous research, as well as our response to COVID. I've sent dozens of oversight letters and my investigation is ongoing. So that's the official statement at this point. Received a moment ago while we were speaking.
Well, that's good, because I know that a lot of the audience is frustrated that we hear and we know so much, but we're not seeing enough action being taken. And so it's nice.
I can also say that Senator Johnson, when I met with him on the Hill, it must be about a month ago. And by the way, he is just a nice guy. He's just a nice Midwestern guy. And all of the press slander and attacks and character assassination had me thinking that I was going to be walking in and meeting some bomb-throwing crazy guy. And he is absolutely, bedrock, straight arrow, middle America. So he's taken a lot of hits here. I mean, the character assassination it takes a toll on people. And he was on the fence about running again. But a couple of days ago, he put out a public statement. He is going to run. And the reason he's running is specifically to get to the bottom of this, because if the Senate flips, he is going to be in charge of investigations. And he has, forgive the horse metaphor, he has got the bit in his teeth and he is ready to run.
We can use our horse metaphors too. I mean, we know the mainstream news likes to compare everything to horses, so why not?
Yeah, right. Ivermectin.
My goodness. So on that note, I will say a very attractive picture of you here in the AP article, but it is interesting that they have you out in a barn as opposed to suited up, because we wouldn't want to have you look at any kind of authority figure.
That's from an earlier photo shoot that they did of me when they were running stories about the famotidine discovery. So they did a whole series on that, and they came out to the farm and did a photo shoot. They've previously posted the photo of me with our stallion. So yeah, that is, there's no question that AP, Reuters, The Independent, and others are doing a coordinated takedown. But it's fascinating in its nuances, and also fascinating how aligned it is with Forbes, because that's the other one. And Forbes is not. So that's why I put in our Substack the question: why is all of the mainstream media reacting, including Google, reacting so strongly to this whole issue of mass formation?
Well, there's a joke going around saying like mass formation is a lie, they all say in unison, because that's the thing. So much of this is proving the points that you've made, even with the Trusted News Initiative. I mean, the Reuters, the AP, and then, as far as the business goes, most of the local news stations pick up the AP. So they're all running with the same headline about this fact check on mass formation, saying that there's no evidence, well, not bothering to add any evidence. So I like that you've already responded on your Substack with some evidence. Even what we're seeing, like you said before, with UK even admitting they've used some tactics to create fear, which is one of the precursors of this phenomenon. So it's funny that they then prove themselves.
Right. They're validating Matthias Desmet's hypotheses in real time. And in what part of the whole character assassination trick. So what's going on with all of this is they're trying to create a cloud of uncertainty around me. They want to make it, in specifically me, because I've been speaking out. And so you'll notice that they've chosen to frame this as if this is my hypothesis, that this anti-vax, I mean, this is the storyline, right? This anti-vax doctor has promoted this crazy wackadoodle obscure theory, which is outside of his core competency. And, you know, it's being framed as if I was the origin of that. And so in the Substack article, what I did, because I reached out to Matthias Desmet, who is the senior academic, full professor, over 170 peer-reviewed publications, book coming out on mass formation. And it's already in, the presses are running. It's in Danish. He's currently negotiating a contract with a English-speaking publishing company to get it out to all of us. And Matthias is mad as hell at all this slander of his academic work, saying that it has no academic basis. And by the way, there's nuances here in all these articles. You need to look at the academic rank and the universities associated with these individuals that are speaking out. They're virtually all junior faculty, and they are coming from relatively obscure colleges. So what you've got here is the AP and Reuters and the others have gone and searched for collaborators, really, at whatever obscure university they can get, and then they're touting as if they are major experts in this area, and they're completely
this is the classic thing that they do. The sentence says, but psychology experts say the concept described by Malone is not supported by evidence. This is what we see, and what I've tried to explain to people as a longtime news professional is that to use these mass generalizations like, but psychology experts, it doesn't say some, it doesn't say most, it doesn't say how they're psychology experts, it just says, but psychology experts. I mean, that could be two psychology experts that say that there's no evidence.
It's plural.
Because they just say, but psychology experts. So it's such a mass generalization of how they frame it. And then to say not supported by evidence, but they don't. So
that's why I got Matthias involved. And so Matthias carefully edited that Substack article. Okay, that it's put out under my name, but we worked closely with that, as did Dr. Joe Glasspool Malone, wrote a big part of it. And then I wrote the front end. And then Matthias gave us some edits and additional suggestions. Matthias, this is absolutely solidly rooted in over 200 years of academic research by people like Hannah Arendt, who was one of the great philosophers of the 20th century and a Holocaust survivor. I mean, this is serious, based in serious academic scholarly work that goes back literally centuries. Okay, it is a long trail. To say that this is some wackadoodle conspiracy theory that somebody just pulled out of a hat is patently absurd. And so he was very glad to have me stand up for him and put that thing out, and to help edit it, and to provide the multiple references that we have in the back end. And I invite others to read it and make your own decisions. As always, there are multiple hot links that follow all the way through.
That was very, very well done. As I was looking at it just last night, I was like, wow, he put this out already that quickly with all of these hot links and citations. It was very, very well done. The other thing I noticed about this, and I highlighted it in the article from the AP, which all the other puppets ran with at the local level, etc., is they say Malone is a scientist who once researched mRNA technology. So let's unpack that. Malone, they of course they don't say Dr. Malone, as you've already said and pointed out that they like to say that as little as possible, is a scientist. So that's a nondescript word.
They neglect the physician part.
Yeah, they neglect that part. It's the very general term scientist when they could have gone with virologist, immunologist, vaccinologist, but no, they went with general scientist. And then who once researched mRNA technology. Wow, what a dismissive way to say this. They don't say any of the patents. They don't say that you were an integral part of mRNA technology development as evidenced by your 9 patents, just who once researched mRNA technology.
So the good news is the public, at least those that aren't in the mass formation. And remember, my goal, there is a third of the population that is lost in the wilderness right now, psychologically, in my opinion, and that of Matthias and many others. And we all know them. People refer to the Walking Dead. They're impervious to data. Those ones are just lost at the moment. They're unreachable. There's something like 30 to 40% of the population that is kind of, I don't know, this is a little weird. This is all this conspiracy theories, and I'm not sure what to believe. But at least they're open enough that you can communicate with them and you can share data and they are able to process it. The other third won't even look at data. They are so into it that they will twist themselves in knots. I got COVID, even though I'd only had 2 jabs because I didn't take the 3rd jab. This is an example from a situation that we're aware of on first person. With a long-standing friend who is deep in the narrative, and she believes that it's her fault that she went to the hospital because she didn't take the 3rd jab. So we need to the only option we have is to try to speak to those, to keep the mass formation from going deeper, to keep the entire culture from going further into crazy land.
And it is crazy land, but I do see some windows of promise that people are waking up. I don't know if you happen to see a clip of Geraldo Rivera saying that he was so shocked and so bewildered that after 2 shots and a booster that he had COVID. He's
really
so shocked. He's like, I'm so shocked. So you got to think that that's playing something on his mind a bit, that he's just like, I'm so shocked. I did everything right. And I mean, and then you have people saying things about like literal comments about when people have died after being vaccinated. People saying like, well, it could have been worse if they hadn't gotten vaccinated.
Those are the ones that are in it. Yeah,
they died. They literally died after getting vaccinated from COVID. They died, and then they're saying, oh, well, it would have been even worse. It's like, wait. It's so crazy. And what I'm also seeing is it really backfiring whenever the WHO posts on how safe and effective things are. Just look at the comments. When they had them, they're finally admitting about the menstruation irregularities, finally, like 2 years later. And
yeah, but they're doing everything they can to paper it over. They're minor. They recover from them. I mean,
then you look at the comments and it's just like, man, people are waking up, because these people are like, oh, really? I started bleeding, not to get graphic, but like they're telling their personal stories of like, basically, you're not telling the full truth because this is my personal experience. And it's thousands and thousands of comments.
This is what happened when the Israeli Ministry of Health attacked me on Facebook with similar kind of yellow journalism character assassination approaches. Is that they just got piled on by Israeli citizens, refuting in every which way what the Israeli Ministry of Health had said about me. And then I've got emails of lawyers from Israel that want to sue. I don't have time for that. I mean, that's it's a distraction. But yeah, I agree. As I said in the Substack, bring your popcorn. what we have is an approved narrative dumpster fire in progress. The Omicron is destroying the approved narrative. That full stop.
Why do you think that they're finally surrendering on some things, like to have Rochelle Walensky finally say, yes, 75% of these cases had 4 underlying conditions? I mean, she's finally saying that openly. And there's a lot of other things finally being said openly that they were calling misinformation and conspiracy theories before. Why are they finally giving back a little bit on these things?
That's a good question. And that feeds back to our earlier conversation. In my experience, there are a lot of good people in the government. They, down at the GS-12 to GS-14 level, that, they've got families and they're being forced to take the jab and they're not happy about it. And they know what's going on. And in the DOD, there is widespread discontent over what's happened here. That SEAL case is just the tip of the iceberg. They know that they've been had and they've been forced to do something that's against the law. That being mandated vaccines for an unlicensed product. That is explicitly against the law, consequent to Desert Storm and the Gulf War syndrome and the anthrax vaccines. I mean, it's law. And they're being forced to take an unlicensed medical product that isn't fully characterized. And they're not very good with that. And they're seeing other servicemen and women suffering the consequences. So when this happens, patriots will come out, and they are. But what I see is evidence for hope that there are good people that work for our government. They are suffering under a system, we call it, we could use a lot of, if we wanted to go down the same kind of journalistic language world that our opponents are using, we could use terms like regime. But they are under an administration that, in my opinion, is overtly lawless and decoupled from reality. And probably the most generous explanation is that they are suffering from the mass formation phenomena. And let's
one more
hope
point
that's all
I
it
wanted to
is.
hit. One more point, because I know that you have a full day ahead of you. One more thing, besides the fact that we have hope and besides things are coming out, when you know your opponent, there's always something going on behind the scenes as well. You mentioned something recently about a new virus popping up in China, I believe, like a hemorrhagic fever. Can you explain to me what's going on there?
So Bannon's group is doing a lot of reporting relating to an outbreak in China. And apparently it is on the doorstep of Beijing, whatever that pathogen is. And it's been described as a hemorrhagic fever virus. Okay, so that language, hemorrhagic fever virus, translates, generally speaking, to a group of viruses that are in the same family as Ebola. Or it may be there are some viruses that cause hemorrhagic fever that are mosquito-borne and are also associated with problems, encephalopathy, disease of the brain. So something appears to have cut loose right before the Winter Olympics in China. And it seems to have got the leadership of the People's Republic of China reacting very, very strongly. Are they overreacting? Are they overreacting because they're concerned about the Winter Olympics being shut down and the whole political hit that would come with that? Or is there truly a new pathogen that's their population and poses a threat to the world? There's no way to discern that right now. I am not in the belly of the intelligence community anymore. I don't know. They're not calling me and saying, Robert, get your team spun up. I'm now persona non grata. But this merits careful watching. That term, hemorrhagic fever virus, is one that is not trivial. That's not a RNA pneumonia type scenario. And the speculation that a hemorrhagic fever virus could have been derived from a coronavirus through selective pressure of mass vaccination, that seems to be a stretch, but viruses do a lot of weird stuff, and they can evolve in a lot of different ways. If coronavirus had evolved to be associated with hemorrhagic symptoms, and we do know that this virus and the vaccines are associated with alterations in blood clotting. So alterations in blood clotting and loss of blood clotting function would lead to hemorrhage. Okay, so this has been Gert von den Bosch's fear, is that vaccination into an ongoing pandemic would drive the development of viral escape mutants that would be both more infectious, more resistant to vaccine, and more highly pathogenic. Right now, Omicron doesn't fit those criteria. Omicron is more infectious, replicates at higher levels, and is less pathogenic. Has something emerged in China, or is it a new virus? I just don't have sufficient data. From what I hear, if they are locking down major urban areas, I have to concur with Bannon and his crew that sending American athletes and their crews into that environment does not sound like good policy. And vindicating, on top of that, vindicating the PRC at this point in time is just not good public policy. But what we've seen all the way through, it's like the State Department got gutted and they haven't, they aren't back up to speed or something. The messaging that happened about the shutdowns in South Africa over Omicron, was basically the PRC couldn't have crafted a better Western narrative than for our governments to be attacking the Southern African nations, which are so intensely mineral rich, and blaming them for Omicron without actually having demonstrated it. What the messaging, putting that out from a diplomatic standpoint, was a major faux pas. It's basically it's driving that type of behavior, and that type of messaging is driving those governments right into the hands of the People's Republic of China. And so who cares? They're just a bunch of Africans, right? I'm being facetious. No, they are together with Latin America. They are the source of huge number of rare earths and key minerals necessary for modern technology. I think that there's a valid criticism here that the Biden administration, in terms of public policy, is in international global policy, is just not with it, and just they I don't know how else to say it. The incompetence is damaging the United States globally.
Is it incompetence, or do you think that there is efforts to destroy our economy and to divide the country? I mean, could it really be that sinister?
This is another one of those things where I have to hope not, or we are really in a deep doo. This gets to my little comment. Why is all the international press lining up along the same lines as Forbes and pushing out the same storyline and the same strategy in their attacks to me? When Forbes is basically controlled by the PRC, it's now a voice of the Communist Party. Okay, they have acquired one of the key periodicals that had been associated with capitalism, and talk about false flag. So they have acquired a false flag asset, and they are actively exploiting it. And why? And China is quite clear that they want the New World Order. That looks really tasty to them. And the World Economic Forum is all lined up around the New World Order and the Great Reset and all that. This isn't some crazy talk coming out of my mouth. You just have to go on their website, and it's all there. It's all transparent. And so, for me, the big reveal was when I learned that Justin Trudeau, Gavin Newsom, and many other politicians were basically trained in the what's basically a junior politicians program of the World Economic Forum. They have been specifically trained and nurtured and brought up through the system to support those agendas. And to call these folks, position them as patriots or Americans, no, they're not. They may have American citizenship or Canadian citizenship, but their allegiance is with a transnational organization.
Interesting. Well, I know you have a full day ahead of you. Do you have any final thoughts or anything else that you wanted to share with me or the audience?
Kristi, the core message: be kind, have an open heart. The ones that are wrapped up in the narrative and the mass formation are hypnotized. It's not their fault. We now know it's being revealed. The governments have intentionally done this to them. And I think we have to be generous. I don't know a better phrase. We need to be Christian. Whether or not you believe in God and all of that, the ethic of Christianity is core to modern Western society. It is what's kept us stable. And I think that we need to really try hard to apply that ethic and that type of logic. Be kind to each other, be generous, do turn the other cheek, don't hate, and try to patiently bring these folks that are suffering from the intentional psyops that have been deployed on them, and help bring them back eventually. It's going to be a big hill to climb.
I think we're climbing it, though. I do see, as you do, some hope and some people starting to wake up and starting to question some things, and in some cases, unfortunately, having some bad experiences to realize, wow, I had full faith and trust in this.
Let me say this, Kristi. I was on a telephone call the other day with an interesting gentleman. It's always been a personal hero. His name is Eric Clapton, and he can play the guitar. He's also the father
Just a little bit.
A little bit.
He's okay at it.
As I said, you're a pretty good guitar player, and thank you for your service to the world. He has 3 daughters that are totally wrapped up in the narrative, and he with an open heart, he was saying, Robert, what can you help? How can you help me to reach them? When I was in my 20s, I didn't care about reproductive health, and we had a good smile over that. But and here's my daughters in their late teens and early 20s, and they think I'm crazy, is Eric speaking, who is, for the audience that doesn't know, he was damaged by the vaccine. He had partial paralysis. Fortunately, he recovered. He was not able to play the guitar. He wasn't able to practice his art. So he was asking, what can we do? Earnestly. And it was the same message, go to globalcovidsummit.org and get them to watch the videos there. Go to theunityprojectonline.com and watch the videos there, and see, be patient. But it's happening to all of us. And at some point, if these Veritas documents are verified, there's got to be some serious accountability.
We're waiting for it, and we'll continue to wait for it. But with peace, patience, kindness, love, self-control, all the things that we were talking about before, that's the way out of this. Well, thank you so much for coming on with me. I want to give you a little bit of time in between with your schedule, but I appreciate it as always, and lots of great information that we were able to pack into this. So thank you.
Give them hell.
I will.
Okay.
All right.
Be good.
Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.